All right, Kitty. Greatest movie ever. Sports movies. Rocky, the Soviets, first Rocky the American versus Ivan Drago, the Soviets at the height of the Cold War, as we'll get into. Matches of bloodbath. David versus Goliath. No pain, Myers. No pain, Myers. Oh yeah. Come on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was a little intro into our next unit, Cold War. You guys just took your test, so hopefully you did well. Um, so if you haven't gotten this from me, make sure you guys get the guided notes from me. By the way, if you're at home, kind of show you guys kind of where we're at. At the very top of your guys' Google Classroom page, you should see classwork. You'll see a Cold War section. There should be 3 posts shared with you from this that you'll be working on basically from now. You'll have Monday to work on it as well. So this is just a very generic PowerPoint guided notes. So by the way, if you're at home, this is where you'll get your guided notes, and I even posted it here too on today's post. So make sure you guys either print it off and use this for the rest of the unit, or you can just open it up as a Google Doc, whatever floats your boat. And obviously here's your assignment as we'll get to. So I have all your assignment stuff right here for what you need to do. And then here's the ed puzzle right there for what you're going to be doing here in a little bit. So with that being said, let's get to it. First part of the notes and lecture for the Cold War. So with that being said, it's kind of where we're at right now. Some lessons that we learned. That isolationism after World War I did not work. The United States, huge power, not involving themselves in the world. We kind of go back and worry about ourselves. We leave Germany to kind of fend for themselves. We punish Germany and leave. And that lack of hands-on approach that the United States and Great Britain and France took is going to lead to some, high poverty, high unemployment, which will allow for the rise of some of these dictators like a Hitler to provide false hope to their people, and obviously will lead to another war. So that tactic is going to change. After World War II, the U.S. will become much, much, much more involved in the world. So it's very important for you guys to understand and to distinguish that on your guys' state test, you need to make sure you have that connection. When you think of post-World War One, think of isolation. Think of World War II. After World War II, we're going to be very much involved. So the U.S. is going to join the United Nations, as we talked about towards the end of our World War II unit. So that's an example of us becoming much more involved. So then it comes to tackling the question, okay, well, what are we going to do with Germany, which we'll get to throughout the course of this unit as well. But basically, guys, I think it's the opposite of what we did after World War One. World War One, we punish and we leave. After World War II, we're going to maintain a presence there and make sure that we're going to help them rebuild to avoid what happened the first time after World War One. I really don't even want to use the word began because it's not the correct term. Really, this started after World War One, but that mistrust and rivalry with the Soviet Union really began to take hold, where the Soviet Union really kind of built themselves up into a world power. Um, so this mistrust and this rivalry is only going to heighten, is going to gain throughout the course of World War II, where we kind of kept the atom bomb secret, the spying campaigns on both sides. So this will lead us into the Cold War with this kind of communism versus democracy type of mentality. So here are our unit goals for the next few weeks. How is America going to change after World War II? How is it going to be different socially, politically, and economically? What's it going to be like in these 3 realms here at home? 2, identify the ways that technology is going to impact the way we live. Obviously, through each generation, technology is going to increase. It's going to make things easier, as we'll kind of get to here in a little bit. How will the Cold War affect our country and citizens both at home and abroad? So how's the Cold War going to play with the U.S. and the Soviet Union? How's it going to be like to live during this time, dealing with this rivalry? Four, the effect of the baby boomers that they had on our country that we'll get to really from now until through May. Why was Vietnam so controversial? Why was it fought? How was this war different from World War II, World War One? And then finally, really important here, if you want to find connections into kind of where we're at today in the world with why does the United States, why do we have issues with North Korea? Why do we have issues with Russia? Why do we have issues with China? How is Israel? Like, what's the relations in terms of not so much us, but the world? How are decisions and things that happened in the 40s and 50s, how are they relevant today? So that's something that we're going to spend some time talking about. So hopefully you make those connections. All right. So Cold War, think of like East versus West. We're the West, Soviet Union's going to be the East. So who fought the Cold War? This is going to be the battle between the United States and the Soviet Union. Now, this isn't going to be a conventional war from what you're used to, as I'll get to in a minute. So kind of hold on to that thought. So when did the Cold War begin? It began really right after World War II. So 1945, really through 1991 it's about 45 years, spanning 4 decades, that this is going to take place. It'll cover a lot of presidents, by the way, and a lot of foreign policy as well as domestic policy. So what is it? So, guys, as I mentioned to you guys about a minute ago, this was not a conventional war from what we're used to. The United States and Soviet Union, the U.S. and the Soviet Union never directly fought a military battle. This war was more over a war of ideas, a war over power, a war over politics. It was like our way versus their way, democracy versus communism, capitalism versus communism, to see which one was more superior. So they competed in everything: technology, race to space, sports, the economy, business, really anything they would compete on to try and outdo one another. Now, may I add, there will be wars. The United States will fight in Korea. The U.S. will fight in Vietnam. Soviet Union will fight in Afghanistan. But there really won't. But those are, again, never U.S. directly against the Soviets. It was always U.S. versus other countries that may have been communists. So anyway, I wanted to make that clear. So what were some reasons for this tension between us and the Soviet Union? Again, stemming back from World War One, but you have the idea of communism and how scary it was for us, and this is the complete opposite for us of what our country is based upon. So obviously, Stalin and communism, they wanted to showcase their dominance and strength and show that way was the more superior way, and vice versa. We wanted to showcase to the world that our way, democracy and capitalism, was the best way to go. Again, two very different ends of the spectrums in terms of beliefs and what they stand for. Disagreements in World War II. Obviously, Stalin was planning. He was upset for years that the United States and Great Britain, they weren't opening up that Western Front in France. It took them really 3 years to finally invade France. So there was a lot of animosity with that, and even just the history behind it, stemming back from the Bolsheviks from World War One, on how the U.S. and Britain helped the White Army try to defeat the Red Army. We wouldn't recognize them with the League of Nations. We wouldn't recognize them with the Treaty of Versailles. So there was always a lot of tension there and distrust and disagreement. Secrets on the atom bomb. We're on the same side, and we're not really sharing our technology and sharing what we have with the Soviet Union. So all along, we're trying to get them to attack Japan with us, and behind closed doors, we end up having this super weapon that was going to end it, which some say played a huge role in us using it to showcase our strength and to scare the Soviet Union. So, and then finally, the impact of Yalta, how Germany and how Europe was going to look after World War II. There were some disagreements on opinions about what to do with Eastern Europe. Stalin wanted to basically take Eastern Europe under his wing, under his grasp, turn them communist, create this satellite states that would be friendly to him, and we wanted democracy. We wanted self-determination. We wanted these states to choose for themselves and elect their own leaders, not be told what to become. So that's kind of where some of the disagreements are going to go. Now, in terms of kind of just very basic, again, you guys should have done this last year in global, but just very basic in terms of communism. What does that mean? It means the government controls people's lives. There's one political party. There's one choice to choose from. There's no social classes. So everybody, and technically in a utopian world, it's equal. You don't have like that rich, middle class, poor. Everybody is here is equal. Um, Obviously, it's good in theory, but there's obviously problems with that. Communism, especially with Stalin's communism, you're going to have lack of rights and lack of citizen. You're going to have strong censorship, where they're going to censor things, and you don't have a whole lot of choices as a citizen to vote certain ways, or to read certain things, or listen to certain types of media. Stalin and the government control everything about what you hear and what you read. Whereas democracy, we believe in private control. It's private citizens can own their businesses. Survival of the fittest. Now the problem is you get a lot of greed. You have that rich, you have that middle class, and you have the extreme poverty, which also is a huge issue. But typically in democracies, you have a lot of freedoms and you have a lot of rights. So kind of one of those kind of give and takes. But ultimately, for us, you have communism was a very scary thing because it's opposite of kind of what we stand for, with innovation and moving your way up the system. All right, so how was this war fought? If it wasn't military, you have the arms race. Now, not this kind of arms, think of weapons. So we have the atom bomb, so guess what? The Soviets are going to be working very hard to develop their own atom bomb. Then you have nuclear missiles. Then you have hydrogen bombs that are going to be developed. So it was this constant race for technology and stocking as many weapons as they possibly could to prepare for a war. You have a lot of money being spent to try and influence other countries to think that you're the best. So the Soviet Union did that with their campaigns. We did it for ours. Again, as I said before, technology, media, and sports. So even though the Soviets and Americans never really directly fought a military battle, the threat of nuclear war was always there. Again, we were that close from going to war in the 60s with the Cuban Missile Crisis, as we'll get to later on in the unit. How will Cold War affect other countries? Countries will be pressured to choose a side. So it's either you're with us or you're against us. You're with the Soviets or you're with us. So it really put the world into two different types of camps. You're with us or you're against us, basically. All right, last but not least, this is very, very, very important for you guys to understand. The main premise behind our foreign policy is going to be the idea of containment. So, okay, so here's the deal. We know that communism exists. The Soviet Union is a communist country. Okay, so our goal is to keep communism contained in that country. Don't let it leak. Don't let it spread out to other countries. Don't let other governments be taken over by them. So think of like Myers, like me, playing basketball. You can't stop me, Runzer. You can't stop me, Herm. You can't stop me. I'm going to just score my points. I'm buckets, man. Back down low, hook shots, three-pointers, going Drano. Okay, so your only hope is to, Myers, you're going to have your 30 or 40 points, no problem. So the problem is I can't let you get 60. Okay, so the same for LeBron. LeBron's one of the greatest players of all time. He's going to get his 30 points. You're hoping to not let him get 60 or 50. Don't let him go off. So it's ultimately what containment is. You're keeping them contained. You're keeping them contained to that area. Think of like I will put this over, but think of like this. Think of this. I want to squash it. I want to keep it where it's in this bucket. It still exists, but keep it squashed in this area. That's the goal. That's the goal of this foreign policy. So don't let it leak. So this is going to be our main premise for the next 40 years. This is why we're going to fight in Korea. This is why we're going to fight in Vietnam, guys. Because we don't want it leaking out and spreading to other parts of the world. So that's what containment means. This was our biggest concern. Keep it where it's at. All right, so all of this should be put into your guys' guided notes. Make sure you guys get that for me or you download it. Again, make sure that you follow this with what you need to do. So you took those notes. There's a workbook thing that I assigned you on Monday. You have an ed puzzle after Hitler, which is right here. And then you have a worksheet, containment, Marshall Plan worksheet right there that you're going to answer. Okay? So all those things you'll have today after the test, obviously, and you're going to have the study halls that you have, and you have Monday, all the half hour on Monday to work on it as well. It's going to be due on Tuesday. All right, adios. Have a good one. Bye-bye.